Check one, two, three. Hey everybody, it's Michael Helms, also known as Michael the Sound Guy, and this is the Location Sound Podcast. You know, each episode we talk with location sound mixers, boom ops, and other industry pros about the various aspects of recording sound on location, whether it's for feature and independent films, TV commercials, interviews, any time where dialogue from actors is recorded. I started my career in the recording studios in New York City with some of the big artists back in the day, and later on projects for networks like HBO, Sci-Fi Channel, and the Cartoon Network. As time went by, I got out of the studio and began working in production sound. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, thanks for joining us. All right, my special guest today works with Lectrosonics Incorporated, located in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Please welcome Karl Winkler.
Yeah, thanks for having me today.
It's great to have you, Karl. A lot of our guests and our listeners are big wireless users, of course, and Lectrosonics is one of their popular choices.
Oh, that's great to hear.
And I've personally used them over the years. And for those of our listeners that don't know a lot about Lectrosonics, tell us a little bit about the company.
Sure. Well, the company started originally here in Albuquerque in 1971, making voice amplification products. And so the name actually comes from lecterns and sonics, so Lectrosonics. We actually, at this point, no longer make any voice amplification products. It's because the wireless mic part of the business really took over starting in the mid-1980s. By the late 80s, we were starting to be very popular for ENG use, news crews going out in the field with our higher-end VHF single-channel wireless systems. That began to evolve more and more in the 90s into filmmaking products, and gradually it's expanded into other areas as well. We also make a line of audio processing products that are DSP-based, auto mixers, matrix, telephone hybrids to do echo cancellation and things like that. So that's all we do is wireless mic systems and audio processors for professional applications. We don't make any consumer products.
Let's talk a little bit about the Lectrosonics product line. There are quite a few models available. So if you're a production sound mixer, what should we know when we're choosing a wireless system for use in our audio bag?
Well, I always start with the question of form factor. I would say if you're talking about a bag system, it narrows down the choice, and I always start by looking at receivers. How many channels do you need? You know, if it needs to go in the bag, are you going to centrally power it or power it from batteries, that kind of thing. The most popular receiver in our line for bag use is the SRC. That's a 2-channel receiver originally designed for slot mounting. But I think we probably sell more units now for bag applications than we do for camera slots. It's on the digital hybrid platform, which is our patented method of shipping the sound over the air with the quality of a digital wireless system, but using an analog FM carrier. After the SR, I would say a very popular small receiver is the LR. It's really a 1-channel version of the SR, but powered by AA batteries. So if you ever need to mount one on a camera or use as a utility receiver, the LR is a great choice, and it's also quite popular. But this doesn't exclude the UCR411A. This is a receiver that has been in our line for about 15 years. Amazing to think that, and we still sell them. It's 1 channel. It's fairly large and heavy, but it's just known as the king in terms of radio mic performance. It's a very tough receiver, physically and radio-wise. So that's the one, if you really want to have a bulletproof performance, that's still a good choice. And it's also really, fits well in a bag, although if you need a lot of channels of it, it gets big and heavy very quickly. So there's a wide range of choice for bag use. Then you want to start looking at transmitters. And once again, I say start by thinking form factor and application. We have some specialized stuff like the WM watertight unit if you're going to be in really wet environments or if it's ever going to get immersed in water. But the SM series is certainly the most popular and has been for a very long time. It was introduced originally in 2005 and has continued to evolve. The SMQV is very, very popular. It was introduced in 2010. And then just about a year and a half ago, we introduced the SM wideband series. These are the units that tune 3 blocks wide to match the tuning range of the SRC or the LR. They have the infrared sync, so it's very quick to set up, despite the fact that they offer 3,000 frequency choices. So we've evolved a long way since those old single frequency crystal controlled, units. Now we've got stuff that has 3,000 frequencies in it. And of course, we have a plug-on unit that's very popular for the boom mic. It also is the 3-block tuning range with infrared sync to match the SRC. And then the SSM is a little tiny one that's the size of a Zippo lighter that, I usually recommend it for people that need something that's easier to hide on talent, whether it be hide it in a wig or a hat. It's very lightweight. On female talent that's got very little clothing or very tight clothing, things like that where you have trouble hiding a traditional transmitter. The SSM is designed for that. So there's a wide range of stuff, and it's always, in my opinion, application dependent mostly.
Is there an option for like a good, better, best scenario when choosing a Lectrosonic product?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Our entire line of wireless products is all the same quality of transmission and the same quality of audio. That's the digital hybrid platform. There might be some ways to shave cost if you don't need as much RF power or if you don't need as many features. So like a very common, I don't want to call it entry level, it's really a step up kit from, let's say, something like a Sennheiser G3 is our L series kit. And we offer it with the LMB transmitter, which is a fixed 50 milliwatt power, wire belt clip, non-removable antenna, and then with the LR receiver. That's a very popular package sold at a number of retailers because it comes with everything you need. So that's really, if you want to say, the first step into Lectrosonics portable wireless system. Now you could go a little more deluxe by including the LT transmitter. That's removable antenna, power settings at 100 milliwatts or 50 milliwatts. You've got the Dweedle tone capability. That's where you have a phone app that can change the settings on the transmitter by playing a tone through the lav mic. So, and that's going to be a few $100s more to get that. Then maybe you want to say, well, with the same receiver, we could go to the SSM. That's the most expensive of the transmitters, the smallest. So it's really more about thinking of various branches. It's not really good, better, best. It's what features do I need, and can I live without more power or Dweedle tone features? And that's how you can maybe save some money.
Okay. So what are some tips maybe for getting the best performance out of our wireless transmitters and receivers that maybe people don't always know?
Sure. Yeah. This is stuff we talk about a lot. And I would say that I take the advice of James Stoffo. He's a famous RF coordinator that does a lot of the big events like the Super Bowl and so on. He says, see the world from the perspective of the receiver. That's where you want to always start your process and choose a frequency either using a scan or smart tune. Most of our receivers now have a smart tune feature where they will choose their own frequency based on what is going on in the RF environment. That's step number one, is always choose a clean frequency and don't assume that if it was clean yesterday, it's necessarily clean today, especially if you're moving from one location to another. So clean frequency really matters. The next thing is to not use any more RF power than you have to. I think a lot of people are used to running at 100 milliwatts, and it's not always necessary, especially if you're not that far away from the talent, because you can raise the RF noise floor if you've got more power than you need. After that, I would say you want to be very careful about your audio gain settings. This is an often overlooked topic, and I did a video on it maybe a couple years ago, specifically talking about audio gain in an RF system and why it matters. Because for any FM-based system, you can actually have less range if you don't have enough audio gain, because the receiver is going to start squelching if it thinks that the signal is really noisy. So I usually recommend turning up the audio gain on the transmitter high enough so that your peaks in audio will tickle the limiters. You'll see the limiter lights on the LED scale on your transmitters blink red at the -20 LED. So you want to turn it up high enough. And this is a very commonly misunderstood topic. A lot of people feel that as soon as they see a red light that it's clipping. And that's not true with any wireless transmitter that I know of. We're not allowed to clip because that's overmodulation according to the rules of the FCC. So we put a limiter in there, and the limiter, when you first touch it, is transparent. Now, if you're hitting it really hard, then you'll definitely hear it. But a light touch on the limiter on peaks is not something you'll typically hear. and it means that you're getting a good solid audio modulation, and therefore the receiver has plenty to grab onto in the signal, and you'll get really good range and really good audio performance. If you're finding yourself boosting the audio level somewhere else in the chain, like in your mixer or your recorder, that means your audio gain is not high enough in your transmitter. So that's a big one. Next up is where the transmitter is placed on the talent and what is the antenna. We hear this fairly often that, on some talent, on some days, I get phenomenal range, and on the next day, even though I'm picking a clean frequency, I'm not getting the range. And oftentimes the difference is that the antenna is touching the skin or damp undergarments on the talent. Especially you find if it's in a hot environment or the talent's moving a lot, dancing, or in a fight scene where they might be sweating. That becomes a very efficient RF absorber to have the antenna right up against the skin and then be damp. So you want to always keep that antenna insulated from the skin in some way or another, either using a piece of plastic tubing, a little sheet of foam, or just a layer of clothing in between. Anything that you can do to keep the antenna away from the body is good for range in your wireless system. Then finally, I would say you want to have your receiver antennas out of the bag if you possibly can. And this is kind of a trend I'm seeing lately, is that people are using our dipole antennas, the SNA 600, and they're mounting them outside of their bag. Another great trick is to use the coax cable antennas, which we make, and we have a video on our YouTube channel showing how to make them. It's not rocket science, but basically you have a coax cable with the proper connector on your transmitter, and you strip away just an amount of the insulation to expose the center wire to the length of the center frequency of your transmitter. And then you peel back the shielding and fold it back and cover the whole thing with shrink tubing. So what this does is it allows you to get that antenna out away from the bag and out and away from your body as the person wearing the bag. If you can have it mounted up on your shoulder or on a hat or something like that, the receiver antennas, that really will increase your range. This is a trick we learned years ago from someone who was doing surf competitions. And they would use our waterproof transmitter on the surfer and then use a coax antenna that would come up and poke above the person's shoulder. And they were getting a mile of range with a 100 milliwatt transmitter on these surfers. So that's the last thing, is antenna placement both on the transmitter and the receiver, trying to make sure that it's not blocked or absorbed in some way. You do those things and you ought to be getting really, really good performance from your wireless system. Okay, now when we boost, say, from 50 milliwatts to 100 milliwatts, what kind of increase in range are we getting? Is there a standard? A lot of things depend on the environment and what frequency you're at, but you're talking about a difference of 3 dB. Okay, double the power is 3 dB, which isn't that much. And I would say in the real world, it translates to maybe a 20 to 25% increase in range to double your power. So it's not a huge amount of range. So to say go from 100 to 250 milliwatts, that's maybe a little more than 3, it's maybe 4 dB. But again, you're only talking about a 25% increase in range. And you'll definitely start noticing that it has an impact on your battery life. Okay. Now, when using transmitters above the 50 milliwatts, what are our responsibilities when it comes to FCC? Yeah, good question. The FCC allows unlicensed users to use up to 50 milliwatts of power. So that's really the vast majority of users when you think about all the people doing theater stuff at 30 or 50 milliwatts. All the touring bands usually don't need more power than that, millions of channels. But the FCC allows license holders with a Part 74 auxiliary license to use up to 250 milliwatts. So that's a fairly big jump between 50 and 250. And frankly, 250 is rarely ever needed. But there's plenty of times when our users feel like 100 milliwatts is required for particular jobs. So to legally use 100 milliwatts in today's rules, you need to have a Part 74 license. Now, quite honestly, the FCC's got a lot better things to do than to be trying to police every single user out there. But that is the letter of the law. And a Part 74 license gives us visibility to the FCC as well. Just a few years ago, during the last round of spectrum auctions, it was the FCC's opinion that, well, there's only 900 and something license holders, and so there can't be all that many wireless mics out there. Truth is, there's a couple million. So through lobbying efforts, they were educated about this, but of course their view was, well, then why don't you get them to get licenses? So we have been working on that. We encourage everyone to get a license. It's not that expensive. It is a little bit laborious, and we do suggest that you get a hold of some of the experts in that process, like Henry Cohen or Bill Ruck, and request them to help you. And for a small fee, they'll help you submit your license. And if you're a legitimate user, most likely you'll be eligible.
All right, now, Karl, the big question is, if we still own Lectrosonics wireless in the 600 megahertz range here in the U.S., what are our options at this point? Do we need to buy new, or are there reblocking options?
Yeah, there's a number of different options. The hard cutoff, by the way, is June 2020 for using any products between 614 and 698 megahertz. There will be a mid-band gap in the middle of block 25, actually, that will still be usable if you are under 20 milliwatts, which is none of our current products. So that's a concern. Here's the options. Most of our products made in the last 7 to 10 years, you can get them reblocked. And what that means is that the radio board is replaced in the product. In most cases, our products have a radio board and an audio board. Some of our products, like the SSM and the LMB, have a single board, so they're replacing the entire circuit board. The cost for that is approximately a third to a half of the cost of new. So it's pretty economical because they're replacing a circuit board and not the housing, and in many cases, not the other circuit board. So to do that, you want to get a hold of our service department and tell them what you have. They'll quote you a cost and a turnaround time, and they'll tell you in the case that maybe they can't do it for one reason or another. For instance, if your product is too old and we no longer have circuit boards for that product. But we try to maintain circuit boards for many, many years after products are no longer made. So in most cases, again, something made in the last 7 to 10 years, we can reblock it. The other option, of course, is to sell your gear off or set it aside or give it to someone in a country where it can still legally be used and buy new gear. And depending on the age of the gear, if you've gotten 10, 15 good years of life out of a wireless product, it's good for you. You got your money's worth. And it is a shame in the case where those products still seem to work perfectly, but we don't make the laws. We do lobby as hard as possible with our industry colleagues to make sure that this stuff happens as seldomly as possible. But we are faced with this reality that by June 2020, no one's legally allowed to use products in that band, again, with the 20 milliwatt restriction in the middle of block 25. That's all that's left in that range.
Now, I also saw that the FCC's auctioning off more frequencies at the end of this year. Is there anything that we need to be worried about?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not sure which ranges that refers to, but it's not in the UHF band that we're talking about. That's said and done, and that was set in stone as of April 2017, again with a deadline in June 2020. As of October 2018, we were no longer allowed to make or sell products in that frequency range for the U.S., but the rest of it's still available, and a couple of little new notches. The FCC did expand the 940 band. It used to be 944 to 952 megahertz, or only 8 meg available, but they expanded it to 941 to 960, and there's a couple notches in there, but otherwise there's about 16 meg available in that band. That's a very popular band for mobile production units, ENG, anything like that. It is required to have a license to use that band, however. So that's newly open to us. We do have products there, SRC and SM family transmitters, handheld and plug-on as well. But in terms of any new auctions coming that would affect us directly, none that I know of.
Okay. Now, when it comes to choosing the frequency range, I know it's always good to check with your local audio store, and they oftentimes will keep track of what's going on frequency-wise in the area. But what kind of choices do you think we should be making frequency-wise?
Yeah, well, we don't have as much left as we once did. One way that I look at it is that for some specialized applications, like IFB, it's totally fine to get out of the UHF band, when it's not quite as critical for the audio quality. So we offer a VHF version of our IFB as an example that gets you completely out of there. That way you can reserve your critical, real-time, high-quality audio with small transmitters and so on for the UHF band that remains, which is 470 to 608 megahertz in the United States, and will soon be very similar in Canada. So I would choose your, critical talent or money channel mics in that range. It's not as easy to find clean frequencies there as it once was. It's more crowded, noise floor is higher, but it's still the biggest piece of spectrum we have available, and there's a wide range of products available in that band. Again, I mentioned the 941 band because if you're an ENG operator or doing field production, that's a nice band to choose. It's only 16 meg available, but it's really, really clean. There's no TV up there at all. So if you're doing that kind of work, that's a good band to choose. And we have a lot of networks that are ordering in that frequency band, for instance. From there, in the UHF band, there's the A1 and B1 bands. And oftentimes I would say, check with your local retailer. They'll know what's popular in your local area. Participate in the forums, like on Facebook Lectrosonics group. We get people asking that question a lot, or the production sound mixing groups. People ask those questions a lot, and you get people answering saying, yeah, I'm using block 20, block 21, I'm using the A1 band, B1 band, and so on. So, do a little bit of a grandmother survey and get your industry colleagues to weigh in on what they're using successfully in the local area.
Now, regarding your IFB, like the R1A, how, for some of our listeners that I guess are not familiar, how does that differ with the CommTech unit?
The CommTech unit is tuning, there's a couple different CommTechs, and to be honest, I'm not the world's expert on the CommTech product, but they've got a relatively low-cost receiver and a relatively high-cost transmitter, and from what I hear from most people that use it, it's great because they can have a lot of receivers at a fairly low price tag and hand those out like candy for Video Village and the entourages and things like that. When they have, slightly more critical application, want people to hear a little better, they go with the R1A type system, which is an all-metal, receiver belt pack. It's got excellent range, and it's a pretty wide range of frequencies available. We've got something all the way down to 470 and all the way up to 608 for the US range, and then there's also the VHF. The CommTech is only VHF.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about, you just came back from NAB. What are some new products that Lectrosonics is offering now?
Sure. The two things that were new to most people who came to our booth at the show were the ALP690 antenna. This is kind of the latest generation powered antenna with a built-in amplifier. And really what it is a combination of the older passive antennas like the ALP620 and the active antennas like the ALP650. So there's an onboard amplifier. What's different is now, right from the outside, you can adjust your gain from plus 12 all the way to minus 6. So we offer an attenuation, not just a gain, which can be really important for shorter cable runs to bring down the RF noise floor. And then it's relay switched to complete bypass in passive mode. So it's an antenna that can also be used for a transmit antenna, which typically is not the case for any amplified antennas. Then finally, it's got some, when used active, it's got two different filter settings. One is from 470 to 608 megahertz, and one is from 470 to 700 megahertz. So it's sort of post-apocalypse, settings. And of course, there's other regions in the world that continue to use the 600 meg band and will for some time. So that was a new product that was first seen in public in many ways at the NAB show. Probably the more exciting product was the DCHT. That's a digital 2-channel transmitter in a belt pack size that came out just before the show. And this was something that a lot of people had asked for when they saw the Duet system introduced about a year and a half ago. They said, wow, this looks amazing. You've got a lot of features in here. It looks really incredible. It sounds amazing. But we really need, for portable production, field production, we need a portable version of this transmitter. The Duet has a half rack transmitter. And this DCHT is basically half of a Duet transmitter in a belt pack package. And it accepts audio in via analog or via AES. So it gives you some options coming out of your field mixer into this unit. And I think the two applications that are probably most suited to it are going to be as a camera hop transmitter using the M2R receiver and an appropriate cable. That's a very small belt pack type receiver. Or as an IFB, again with the M2R. And the big advantage there is IFB is often mono. And with this system, you can send two different mono IFB mixes off of a single transmitter on a single carrier. So that should cut down on the weight in a bag, and it should cut down on the number of RF carriers that you need to set up for IFB use. So it's pretty flexible, and we definitely saw a lot of interest. We've already been selling them. It's in stock, and people seem to really like the concept.
All right. Now, all your products need to be purchased through an authorized distributor, correct?
Yeah, dealers. We sell direct to dealers. We don't do any direct sales to end users. And we've got specialized retailers all over the country and even all over the globe. On the West Coast, you've got True Audio, Location Sound, Band Pro. In New York, you've got Gotham Sound. B&H sells our products. In Florida, you've got TAI. You know what I mean? For news and broadcasts, you've got Heartland Video. Full Compass. So those are who stock and sell our products, among many others, of course.
Do you have certain products that people are not necessarily using, but it could be a valuable addition to their kit?
Yeah, we always feel that. It seems like, we always wonder, why don't they use our, antennas or our, something that we've done recently is renovated our RF distro. These are rack mount units, the UMC 16B. We recently expanded that line to do a model of that for the 941 band. We're doing one now that covers only A1 and B1. And then we have the wideband low, which covers from 470 all the way to 698. So I think people are not quite aware of those. And I think also our audio processors are something that most field production guys and maybe even broadcast stations don't know. You've heard of the Dugan auto mixers, which are a fantastic product. But we have some auto mixers too that are similar in terms of their technical approach with gain sharing auto mixing. So it's not gated, it's gain sharing. It's very smooth auto mixing. So anyone who's looking at doing auto mixing should probably take a look at our line of the Aspen products. And then related to all that is the Dante products, the DNT. These are units that can either take a Dante signal in and come out analog, or analog signals in and come out onto the Dante network. And these products like the DNT69 and the DNT0212 have auto mixers and matrix capabilities built in, so they're quite powerful. And those are lesser known. Now, all these things are on our website, of course, and in our catalog. But, a lot of times people come looking for specific things and never take the time to look around and say, wow, look at this. They make an auto mixer. I didn't even know that. So we hear that a lot.
Okay, exactly. Yeah. Kind of jumping back to the SMWB and the SMDWB, they're, besides being a wireless transmitter, they're also a recorder. Now, why can't we do both? We understand it's a patent issue, correct?
Yeah, that's the long and short of it. There's a dispute going on between another company and us that they have a claim that, this is patented and we can't have simultaneous recording and transmission. So, the outcome of that is going to be up to the courts. We really don't have any way of knowing how the outcome is going to be. So can't really comment on it more than that.
Okay. Yeah, it's a question I guess everybody, is curious about, but we appreciate you filling us in a little bit.
Of course.
All right. Are there any other products or any services you want to mention as we kind of wrap things up?
Not that I can think of. We're chugging along. We've got some interesting products in development, but really, we're last year and this year, partly because of the spectrum conversions and partly because of our product introductions in the last couple of years, we've had very exciting years in business. So can't complain too much about that. Things are good. We're working hard around here, and we're hiring new people, and we employ 150 people here at our plant in New Mexico. The products are all made here in this one plant. We've got machine shop, plastic, electronics fabrication, everything. So we're very proud of that. It's a tradition we want to continue. And, we really appreciate our users because we get ideas from them. We get requests, we get complaints, we get ideas, and we do our best to put those things into practice. And it's really how the products come about. As I mentioned, the DCHT came straight out of people saying, hey, the Duet looks amazing, but we want a portable transmitter. So we have a wonderful user group. We really enjoy getting to know them and learning from them and learning about their workflows and their challenges, and gives us ideas. So, we plan to continue doing a lot of that too.
If people wanted to find out more about Lectrosonics and stay up to date on what's happening there, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Oh, a lot of different ways. We're reachable by old-fashioned methods like the phone. Once in a while, we get a letter in the mail. That's still fine. We read those and reply. Certainly email, sales@lectrosonics.com. If you send it in and just with a general question, those will get routed to the appropriate person once we've read it. We're accessible pretty much on a lot of social media. There's the Lectrosonics Facebook page. There's the Lectrosonics group on Facebook. We have an Instagram account we post there, and we read users' input there. There's a lot of different ways, and people use them all. It's amazing. It's hard to keep up with, but we enjoy that. So a lot of different ways. And of course, our website, lectrosonics.com, is a wealth of information. We keep that updated as much as possible. You can download data sheets there and look at the products, pictures. There's manuals. There's the full line catalog is available. There's all kinds of resources about mic wiring information, frequency tables showing you all the different things available in every block, things like that. So the website's really a great resource. I use it daily myself, actually. So a lot of different ways. We love hearing from people.
All right. Well, great. Well, Karl, I want to say thanks to Karl Winkler from Lectrosonics for speaking to us today.
Well, thanks again. Really enjoyed it and love to do it again sometime.
And a big thanks to all of our listeners out there. If you'd like us to discuss a particular topic, please send us an email at locationsoundpodcast@gmail.com. We would love for you to subscribe and leave us a comment. We're available on Apple Podcast, and for Android users, check out Google Podcast. Also, we're on Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, remember, sound is half the picture.